Man. Okay, here we go. We're back. I'm Joey.
I'm Lori.
And we are Christ-Centered Marriage and Family. And if you haven't seen our show before, we're just getting started. We've been a couple months into it, and we're not very good, but we're getting better. The content's getting better. We just got a new banner back here, as you can see. We don't have a studio. Well, we're working on it. And I got lighting and got these mics. We're not very fancy, but we're going to get there. And we just hope that what we present to you is helping you and that you are encouraged and uplifted and informed. We have two aspects to our show. We have the Christ-Centered Marriage, and that's what we've been doing the last few months. And then we have Blended Family. I think we need to go back to the Blended Family episode.
We haven't done that in a while.
Yep. So maybe in a couple of weeks, next weekend or so, we'll do a Blended Family. Today, we're going to talk about marriage in specific. Why do people get married? And I got a couple of statistics here. Number one, how many marriages end in divorce? This is from a USA Today article. So, what would you think? How many marriages end in divorce? 50%.
Probably.
41% of first marriages, and then 60% of second marriages, 73% of third marriages. Isn't that what we've been learning from Ron Deal's courses on the Smart Step Family? From Family Life Blended. Mm-hmm. He was saying that he wants to help people end the cycle of divorce, because once you get divorced, it becomes convenient. Mm-hmm. Well, second wife didn't work, second husband didn't work, so I'm gonna keep going until I find the right one. So, and that's what we want to help you. We want to end that cycle of divorce. What percent of Christian marriages end divorce? It should be 0.
Should be.
But from Professor Bradley Wright, sociologist at the University of Connecticut, he says 38% of those who attend church regularly. So we don't know if they're real Christians or not, but from those who attend church, from all the statistics they can find, 38% of those marriages of people who attend church end in divorce. So what are the top causes of divorce in the United States? And this is from the National Center of Biotechnology Information. Number one, lack of commitment. And I think that goes back to where the beginning. If you're not committed in the beginning, you're not going to all of a sudden get committed 3 or 4 years later. Mm-hmm. You're not. I like when we got married, I knew she was committed and she knew that I was committed. So we had a good foundation. I think the foundation is everything. Extramarital affairs. That's a no-brainer. And that it's a shame, but too much conflict. What kind of conflict would cause people to get divorced?
I guess just never being able to agree on anything, just arguing all the time, maybe.
Just can't get along.
Maybe
can't stand you no more. Just ain't standing no more.
And maybe work schedules or something. I don't know.
Right. Some people don't know how to manage stress. Some people don't know how to do the conflict resolution.
Yeah.
Getting married too young. I don't like that. I mean, what are we talking about? 15, 16? 20 years old, get married. I mean, what are we waiting for? I mean, realistically, come on, people. If you got a good answer, tell me. You got to get your career. You got to sow your wild oats. What you got to do? Because I got some numbers here that we're going to talk about. The age people get married now. I don't like this getting married too young. I can see 15, 16, 17 years old, but I think when you're in your 20s, get married. Get married and have babies young. That way, that's your life, I wished I would have got married when I was 20 years old and had babies, but I didn't. I was dumb and I had to party throughout the 20s. But financial problems, yep. Substance abuse. Some married people that the spouse has substance abuse problems. Domestic violence. Listen, it's mostly men, but I guess some wives can be beaten there. I guess you got some wives that has
it happens, but
problems.
It's probably not as prevalent as it is
but
for men.
On a man's perspective, if a man's beating his wife, I don't think that wife should stay. Maybe if that man repents, gets some help, well, if a man hits his wife, he's going to jail, period. Mm-hmm. End of story. I'm done with that. Okay. Health problems. I don't like this. That's one of the top 10 reasons people get divorced. Health problems. What about that for better or worse part?
Mm-hmm.
Sickness and health. To death do us part. Lack of support from family. Was that? Say your family doesn't like me, and so they give me a hard time, and I guess I don't quite understand one.
That or like I've seen where like the husband's mother is too clingy and
Yeah.
wants to get in their business all the time, and
Yeah.
she doesn't let him.
And the husband or the spouse that has that controlling parent doesn't step in and say, "Hey, mom and dad, cut it out."
Mm-hmm.
I guess that could, yeah. Religious differences. Okay. When I was a little boy, 8, 9 years old, and going to Sunday school, I don't understand why they keep telling me that. These sweet old ladies, Georgia May and Hazel, Sunday school teachers, they'd tell me, boys and girls, when you get old enough to get married, marry a Christian person. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, all right. That was one of the best pieces of advice I ever got. Like, that was spot on. That was great. Look, we are talking about this stuff at a Christian's perspective. So if you're watching this and you're not a Christian, you should be. We hope that you come to saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. But if you are a Christian, and if you're not married, don't marry somebody that's not a Christian. It's going to be so difficult. What would you say a good reason that you marry somebody that's not a Christian?
I don't know, maybe just hoping that they'll become one eventually, so you marry them. But that may or may not happen. That's taking a big chance.
Yeah, and what if that doesn't happen? You're stuck you're married to somebody that probably despises you being a Christian, never going to be a Christian. You go to church and they don't go to church, or that person might forbid you from going to church. Religious differences, don't do it. We're coming from a Christian's perspective. So if you're not married and you're a Christian, find somebody that's a Christian.
I would even say, even if you're both Christians, you need to still have the same value, faith,
yes,
beliefs.
Yes.
My dad was a Catholic, my mom was Baptist,
mm-hmm.
and so she had to convert to Catholicism in order to marry him, but she never went to church with them. So it was always just dad and us going to church. So I would say, even if you are a Christian, you still need to be of the same faith.
Like if you're Baptist, don't marry a Pentecostal. I've seen it. Nothing against Pentecostals. They're good people. But Pentecostals probably say nothing against Baptists. The Pentecostals probably say the same thing. Don't marry a Baptist. Because your values and your belief systems are a little different. And I have seen Baptists and Pentecostals married, and you never see them at church together. It's don't do it. Average age for marriage in the United States: 29 for men, 31 for women. And I looked into that, and one of the biggest reasons why the average age for women get married is 31?
Because they're trying to get their careers going?
Maybe. One of the biggest, because they can't find a man mature enough.
Yeah.
And they can't find a mature enough man.
Well, they have to be, maybe they have to be old enough to, because men mature slower than women do, so maybe they have to get old enough to find a man that's...
I need to get my Bible. Can you?
Yep.
Why don't you go ahead and get us going? I'm going to get my Bible because we are going to be reading from the Bible, talking about marriage. Because I hate saying this biblical marriage or Christian marriage, because in our eyes, there's only one form of marriage, and that's what God has ordained from the Bible. So, Lori, go ahead and get us going here. Why do people get married? And read from Genesis, and I'm going to get my Bible.
Okay. Why should people get married? Then the Lord God said, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make him a helper suitable for him." So the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon the man, and he slept. Then he too took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh at that place. The Lord God fashioned into a woman the rib which he had taken from the man, and brought her to the man. The man said, "This is now bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and his mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And the man and his wife are both naked and were not ashamed. Genesis 2:18, 21 through 25.
All right, so good. So that right there, and I put that in there first before we even start about the reasons to get married, because I wanted you to know what we see as the foundation of marriage, so you can see our perspective. Marriage to us is not just a civil union that the Supreme Court has to define what marriage is. That's not how we see it. We see it right here, just like she read. Genesis chapter 2. The union of man and woman becoming one flesh in the eyes of God, a covenant relationship between a man and a woman with God. It's like a triangle. Man, a woman, and God forms a triangle covenant. That's the way we see marriage. That is our definition of marriage. So that's where we're coming from. So now you know our foundation. So, and we are going to use a list from Focus on the Family article by Greg Smalley. Now I'm just going to use the topics, and I'm not going to use his comments. We're going to use our own comments. So number one on the list, go ahead with that, Lori.
Marriage is the cornerstone of a stable society. Modern society has coined two terms, traditional marriage and the nuclear family. They have done so because we have so greatly destroyed the covenant of marriage that what we have now has to be redefined. You have marriages out of convenience, for social status, like in Hollywood, for political gain, and same-sex marriage. God created the covenant of marriage to be one man with one woman. God created marriage to be the framework of society. In Genesis chapter 1, verses 27 and 28, we see that God created man, male, and female in his image, and he commanded them, male and female, to be fruitful and to multiply and to fill the earth. This is to be done in the framework of marriage. There's a list of benefits to society that marriage brings. Like, it's the best framework for raising children.
Right.
When a man and woman in the framework of marriage work together and make sound financial choices, it helps reduce the financial burden of society. Nations spend billions in tax dollars supplementing single parent and children's homes. Happily married couples generate happy societies around them.
Yeah, and let's touch on this. The very last one, happy married couples. So if you got a home, married couple and family, the home next to it, married couple and family, they share values similar, both married, and they're taking care of their family, neighbors are taking care of their family, and the society is similar. But when you have one house has a husband and a wife, the next house has a single mom, and the next house down the street has a single dad, and the next house down the street has two same-sex parents, or you have a mom taking care of three kids, and then they go to their dads, and that stuff happens. And we've been through all that. We're a blended family, but it's not the framework that God wants. The framework for marriage is a man and woman in a lifelong commitment to each other in covenant of God.
And as a teacher, I see a lot of grandparents raising their grandkids because the parents, whether it's just the mother or just the dad or both, don't want to raise them, or they can't raise them because they're in jail or on drugs or whatever.
Yeah, that's real. And look, when she can speak to this, she was a single mother for a while before we got married, so she knows the struggles of living on her own and trying to provide for kids. And unfortunately, well, thanks to God blessing her in many different ways, before we got married, she didn't have to depend on the government. For one, she made just above the threshold to receive government aid.
I was going to say, I had three boys. They were 11 through like 18 months at the time of my divorce. And I applied for our state, I don't know, assistance program, what do you call it? And I was I had taught in a private school for 10 years, and I just got hired into public school. So I was basically on a first-year teacher salary.
Mhm.
And I still made too much money with 3 kids to get any help. But, I had people that I knew that made more money than I did that were on the same assistance program because they were dishonest on their applications. And they encouraged me to be dishonest. And I was like, I'm not doing that. So I just didn't do it.
But anyways, if let's say she was still doing private school to where she didn't make as much as she did in public school, she would have been eligible for government aid. So now, no fault on her own, but her as a single mother would have been dependent upon the government. And there are, I would say, millions of single parents, maybe single dads too, that are getting assistance from the government, maybe other charitable organizations. And none of that would have to be if they were under the framework of husband and wife in marriage, right? To where the husband is there to support the wife, and they both together create a family unit to where they don't have to depend on anybody else. They don't have to depend on the government or other charitable organizations to take care of them. And then the best framework for raising children. Back up to Genesis chapter 2, where he says, Genesis chapter 1, 27, 28, where he says, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Look, I know that they're doing this whole in virtual utilization, and that's a big thing now. And you know who is benefiting the most from that is same-sex couples. They're using that whole in virtual utilization,
in vitro fertilization,
fertilization to have kids, but not. Look, 2 women can't make a baby. 2 men can't make a baby. Just because you have somebody else deliver a baby and you call it your own, you basically adopting a baby. That's not God's design. God's design is for a man and a woman to get together, physical union, to procreate in the natural way. You can't make a baby with the same sex union. I mean, how much more clear does it need to be? Okay. Number 2, is that me? Or we get out of line here?
That's okay, go ahead.
You go ahead and read number 2.
Marriage is a sacred covenant between the couple and God. Most weddings contain some form of wedding vows, like I take you to be my wedded husband, I promise and covenant before God and witnesses to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold, for richer for sickness and in health, as long as you both shall live. However, there are some who are performing non-Christian marriage ceremonies who use vows that look nothing like this, or no vows at all, because they don't view marriage as a sacred covenant. Jesus took marriage seriously, and he emphasizes the importance of the covenant of marriage, as we see in Matthew 19, where he was questioned by the Pharisees about divorce. Jesus responds, have you not read that he who created them from the beginning made them male and female, and said, for this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the 2 shall become one flesh. So they are no longer 2, but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let no man separate. Marriage is a lifelong covenant between husband and wife and God.
Yeah, this is, you can, okay, we'll say biblical marriage, Christian marriage. I'll go ahead and say it, which I think is redundant. It's kind of like saying the sky is blue. But male and female, like Jesus said, from the beginning, made them male and female. And even when she read Genesis chapter 2, where he said, he took from the rib and fashioned from the man and fashioned into a woman. That was to be his helper. God, he didn't make woman just because he wanted to make another sex. Oh, look, we got men and we got women. So now I made 2 different sexes. He made woman specifically to help the man and to join with the man as one flesh in a covenant union of marriage. That was the specific reason why he made female to complement male. Does that sound right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And you say, well, Jesus doesn't say it like that. Well, Jesus just did say that. He says, male and female. A man shall leave his father and his mother and be joined to his wife. So all those out there saying that Jesus doesn't forbid or Jesus doesn't disapprove of same-sex marriage, they don't know the words of Jesus. One of the problems is, and I heard Abner Chow talk about this. He was talking about the Obergefell decision in 2015 where the Supreme Court ruled in the Obergefell case, and they said, we deem as the Supreme Court of the land that same-sex union is now constitutional. But it doesn't make it right in the Bible. It doesn't make it right in the eyes of God. It doesn't make it right in the eyes of Jesus. And Abner Chow was saying, just because the society and the government gives us permission doesn't mean it's right. You have permission to get drunk. That don't mean it's right.
Mm-hmm.
You have permission to overeat. That don't mean it's right. You have permission to have sex outside of marriage. That don't mean it's right. Just because the Supreme Court says same-sex marriage is right, don't mean that's what God ordained. So, and this will probably be our last YouTube video because we'll probably get kicked off YouTube after that. But anyway, you have any more comments about that?
Well, and this, and it's just it being a covenant. It's just a commitment to stick with it no matter what.
Right.
No matter what problems you have, no matter
Right.
Whether it's financial problems or sicknesses or just family issues, whatever it is, that we never say the divorce word. That's not ever an option. It's not ever, well, if you don't stop, I'm going to divorce you or whatever. We never use that.
No. Number 3, that's me. Marriage benefits the individual. I, myself, am truly grateful to have my wife as my lifelong partner. And I know she feels the same about me because I sense it and I feel it. And being around her, I know that's just the way she communicates to me. I could probably live alone, but my life is so much better because I have her by my side. My life is so much better physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually with my wife by my side as my life partner. Yes, you could enjoy someone outside the marriage relationship, but without the marriage covenant commitment, you are restricting yourself from the benefits of what God designed for us to have. However, too many people, not just recently, this is not a recent thing, but it's been going on long before I was even born. They want to have the benefits of a relationship with somebody without being married.
Mm-hmm.
The whole term shacking up or sleeping together, that's been going on long before I was married, long before I was born.
They want to, let's try it out and see how it works.
Yeah.
For a while before we decide to get married.
And it's even in the teenage mind. I don't particularly like the way teenagers get so attached to each other. These boys and girls get so attached to each other, and 4 or 5 years later, they just break up and not even get married. But beside that, what I worry about these teenagers getting so attached to each other so quick, so young, is by the time they get married, there's not going to be much more to discover. They're going to get bored with each other, and hopefully,
or in our experience, when you're too young and you get too involved with each other, and then you break up, and then it's there's a lot of emotional trauma that goes with that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just hard on those two. It's hard on the families that are involved with those two extended families, and it's just a lot of emotional trauma that could have been avoided if they had just waited.
Yeah. And a lot of people want the whole sexual relationship. They want to just sleep around and not make any commitments. And society promotes that. Society even promotes it to teenagers. And even when I was going to school in the 80s as a teenager, they were teaching, hey, have safe sex. We don't want you to do it, but if you do, have safe sex. That's not right.
Yeah.
The only thing you should be telling your kids is don't don't have sex outside of marriage, period. Don't have sex outside of marriage. And if you can't contain yourself, don't date.
Yep.
If you can't contain yourself, just don't date, period. But people, adults, they want the benefits of a relationship without getting married. And that's not right. I enjoy having somebody to talk to and just somebody to know that we can keep each other company, and she doesn't have to be lonely. I don't have to be lonely, and we can share our burdens. When she's not having a good day, I can try to help her. Sometimes I don't do a very good job, but I can try to help her, and we can share each other's burdens and take care of each other and just enjoy life together. That's one of the benefits of marriage. Okay, number 4.
Marriage is the best way to raise children. Single parenting is not the best way to raise children. Same-sex marriages are not the best way to raise children. Children need that mother, biological mother, and the father, biological male, in their lives, caring for them, teaching them, influencing them, loving them. Children need 2 different sexes and the differences they can provide in their lives. And kind of like we mentioned earlier, we're not disparaging single parents.
Mm-hmm.
People are single for many reasons. Maybe you lost a spouse to death. Maybe you got divorced, and it wasn't your fault. You know, your spouse left, and there was anything you could do about it, and you're just stuck. That's kind of what happened to me, just with raising kids by yourself. And I was fortunate enough to have some other men in the family that were willing to be mentors to my boys at that time. So, you know, that's the only advice I can give you is if you're stuck being a single parent, just try to find someone else that can be that mentor of the opposite sex, you know, hopefully until you can find someone like I did.
Yeah. And look, I'm not disparaging the people that have the same sex attraction or relationships or whatever. It's just not God's design. It's just not God's design. And I'm not trying to hate on them. People are going to say, well, you're a hater. Well, I'm not trying to be like that. It's just the whole homosexual relationship is just not God's design. And there's a lot about that in the Bible, which I'm not going to talk about that. But I know that the adoption agencies are pushing these babies on same-sex couples, and that's a big thing now. And government, I think these adoption agencies are getting government money to do that. But I think, and the studies have shown that a child benefits from having a mother and a father to experience the whole masculine, feminine. The mother can love the kid different from a dad. A dad can love the kid different from a mother. The child, whether it's a boy or girl, the child needs that.
Mm-hmm.
And the only stable family a child should have, is one with a husband, biological male. Shame I gotta say that, and a biological female mother.
Maybe we can do a show on that one time.
Maybe.
Benefits of mother and a father.
Maybe. Okay, number 5. Is that me? Marriage creates a safe relationship where you can reach the deepest levels of intimacy and connect. A man and a woman in a covenant relationship share a bond that people in other relationships do not share. Well, they should not share. And there's a lot of people that sleep around, and they sleep around for years. Christian folks do that. Christian folks, they sleep around, and you may see them go to church together, and it's kind of like unspoken. You know, you see them at church, but you don't put it together. That wonder what they're doing in their private life. They've been dating for years. Why don't they ever get married? Married people share a physical, sexual relationship, and that relationship should only be shared in marriage. But our society doesn't promote that. Our society promotes just the opposite. Our society thinks that if you say marriage is the only way you should, the only sex is the sex within marriage is the sex that's approved. Remember when they used to make fun of Mike Pence back about 8 or 9 years ago when he'd say, I don't like going out in public with a woman, or I can't go to a meeting with a woman because it's improper, you know. well, he's just old fashioned. What's wrong with a man and a woman sitting together that's not his wife? Well, it's improper, and it could lead to temptation, which, I commend Mike Pence for saying that. We are hardwired to think, and this is society hardwires us as kids to have this sexual desire, because it's, even when I was young, watching the Dukes of Hazzards or Wonder Woman or whatever it was, it's sexual overtones. We've been hardwired. I can't watch that stuff. I can't watch TV shows anymore because it's all sexual innuendos. And we've been so desensitized to it that probably people in her 6th grade classes, they know more about sex than you think they know.
Yeah, they know more than they should. That's for sure.
They've been forced spoon-fed that stuff. TV, the internet. Now they got the internet. I didn't have the internet when I was growing up. I had magazines and TV and radio, and that was it. They got all kinds of stuff out there to inundate their mind sexually. And there's not a lot of people out there other than Christians and churches promoting sex within the framework of marriage. That concept has been lost in our society, and we need to bring that back. Besides the sexual aspects, husbands and wives experience many forms of intimacy in the covenant of marriage. Like sharing our deepest secrets. I share things with her that I'm not going to share with anybody else, especially another woman. I don't even look, I'm not against women. I just don't like spending a lot of time talking to women other than a working relationship or at church. I just don't call up women or text women or sit down and just spend a lot of time. Hey, my friend, the woman over there, I just don't have women friends. I just don't. So she's the only one that I share my deepest thoughts with.
And I'm the same way. The only other men I talk to are either family members, people at church, or people at school. But I don't text them outside of school, call them outside of school. Hey, let's go have lunch or whatever. I don't do any of that.
And when you have that attitude, and you know that you're not sharing your deepest thoughts, when it's kind of a wonderful thing to know that I can share my deepest thoughts with her, and she can share her deepest thoughts with me. Whatever it is, our fears, our worries, our anxieties, our happiness, or just the funny things we just want to talk about, or just secret things that we don't tell anybody else. We share it to each other. They experience life together. Husbands and wives experience life together in ways people in other relationships can never do. Number 6.
Marriage creates a powerful synergy. In his letters to the Ephesians, Paul compares marriage to the relationship between Christ and his church. He calls it a great mystery. When in the proper covenant under God, a man and woman form a oneness that no other relationship can form. The husband and wife combine their differences into one complete unit. They do so physically, emotionally, and spiritually. You can even become one together mentally, thinking the same, speaking the same, making sound decisions together that better your marriage and family unit.
Yeah, when we went to that Family Life Conference back in May last year, we learned about the oneness. And I guess we probably understood it, but not in that term, oneness.
We didn't really know exactly what it meant.
Yeah, but now we know. We know you're on the same page. That whole synergy that you meld together, your thoughts. You don't like telepathically or nothing, but you kind of understand. You understand what each other's thinking, and you want to. I want to know what she's thinking. I want to know her passions. I want to know her fears, and she wants to know mine, and we just become one in everything. What else on that?
We just know each other's likes and dislikes, and we did the whole love language thing, so that helps us kind of communicate to each other better, because we know how the other one sees I do something for him, I want to do something to show that I care about him. I want to do it in a way that he understands. That's what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm trying to show.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, and a lot of the time divorces happen because there's no synergy. The husbands and wife are not together, and or they may have been together, but somehow they got broken apart, and they just can't figure out a way to get together. They're like magnets repelling each other. They just can't get together. Number 7, marriage helps us become more like Christ. I know that sounds cliche, and that's one of them things, one of them churchy things to say, Christ-like. We're going to be Christ-like. We're going to be like Christ. You know, we got the gospel in our lives. But let me try to explain it. Let me kind of dumb it down a little bit. In the framework of a Christian marriage, a husband and wife can become more like Christ. We can have the attitude of Christ towards each other. So the way Christ was demonstrate his love towards us, I can demonstrate that same love towards her. We can help each other in the sanctification process to where I can help her become holy and she can help me become holy. But not only that, through the ups and downs of marriage, we learn how to love each other better. We learn patience. And that's one thing you got to have in marriage. One of the most important things is patience. She's got a lot of patience for me, I can tell you that right now. That's, I think, one of her strongest points, especially pertaining to me, is patience. Thank God that she has patience for me, because I'd be in trouble if she didn't. Forgiveness. You got to learn how to. Christ forgave you. You got to learn how to forgive your husband or your wife. Perseverance. Learn how to endure together, serve together, persevere. Charity. Well, you call it grace. You got to have grace and charity toward each other. Kindness, mercy, hope. All these things. These are the things that you got to have in a marriage. Christ-like marriage. Just as Christ demonstrated towards us, you have to demonstrate towards your spouse. You have anything to add for that?
I don't think so. Just as Christ forgives us and we forgive each other, and just as Christ gave up for us, we give up things for each other. And it's just he is the example that we try to follow, try to mirror. Our marriage should show others who Christ is.
That's right. Just living your life as a Christian, you want to be Christ-like. Even more in marriage, be Christ-like in marriage, or as a parent. Number 8.
Marriage gives us the help we need, so no person should go at life alone. This was not God's design. Just like we read earlier, God made woman to be the helper for man. We are designed by God to support each other. So God made Eve to be a helper to Adam. So we are to be there to support each other and to help each other, whatever that looks like.
Right, yep. Just like, she's my helpmate and I'm her helpmate. Number 9, marriage reflects the relationship between Christ and the church. And again, these are all these topics, 1 through 9, are from the article by
Greg Smalley.
Greg Smalley from
Focus on the Family.
Focus on the Family.
Yep.
But we just took the topics and we did our own little explanations. So I given him the credit for the topics.
Yeah.
But everything else is our own words. So, and the best way to describe the relationship that marriage represents as Christ does the church is in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 22. He says, "Wives, be subject to your husbands. Submit to your husbands, just as to the Lord." So just as the wife would submit to Christ as her head, she should submit to a husband as her head. And then verse 23, husband is the head of the wife as Christ is the head of the church. So Christ is the head of the called out body, the church, the ecclesia. We like to say the body of Christ is the church. True. The called out body is in subjection to Christ. So the husband is the head of the family, the marriage. And so the wife is under subjection to the husband. just as Christ is the head of the church. Verse 24, as the church is subject to Christ, so should the wife be subject to her husband. So the church is subject to Christ, the wife is subject to the husband. Verse 25, husbands, love your wives like Christ loved the church. Christ gave himself for the church. He was a servant. He, like I always say, how he washed the feet of the disciples. He performed a lowly servant task for his disciples. So we should be servants to our wives because Christ served us. In verses 26 through 30 of Ephesians chapter 5, husbands should love their wives as they do their own body, just as Christ loves his own church. So imagine the ecclesia, the called out body of Christ. The church is the body of Christ. Imagine if Christ didn't love his own body. Christ didn't love the church. Imagine how terrible that would be. So just as Christ loved the church, we too husbands should love their spouse. So if we violate any of these commands, then we are not representing the proper picture as Christians. So if the wife is not under subjection to her husband, then she's not doing what Christ wants her to do. And if the husband is not the head of the wife, then he's not following Christ as the head. And all the way down to the husband's not loving the wife as her own body, he's not demonstrating Christ loving the church. So just as if Christians, the church, refuse to submit to the authority of Christ, they are in disobedience to him. And when husbands and wives refuse to live within the framework listed in these verses, they are not only going against the biblical framework of marriage, they are going against Jesus Christ. If we refuse to love our spouse and submit to them, how can we say we love and obey Jesus Christ? All right, Lori, let's wrap it up.
Okay.
Read the conclusion.
Marriage is good, but marriage is also ordained by God to be a holy covenant. Our society has severely damaged marriage by not submitting to the design he gives us in his word. If you want a better marriage, you must commit to having a God-ordained covenant and love our spouse as the Lord commands us to do. Anything called marriage that is outside the biblical framework of the covenant institution of marriage is not marriage and should not exist, nor should it be promoted.
Right. Any other thoughts before we wrap it up on this?
I don't think so.
So, well, our live stream didn't go very well, but hope you that if you're watching this, that you benefited from this. If you have any questions or comments, please let us know, and we will get back to you. If it's a wife-specific question, I'll have her answer it. And if it's a husband question, I'll answer it, or we can both tackle them. It don't matter. Well, we will get back to you. So please comment. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, we got a lot of videos out there, and we're going to post some more. If you are in a blended family, we do blended family videos, and maybe we're going to do one next. So stay tuned for that. So thank you for watching, and God bless.
Good night.